The road stretched endlessly before her, a desolate ribbon of cracked asphalt that seemed to vanish into the night. Sarah pulled her coat tighter around herself, the chill of the wind biting through the fabric. Her car had broken down miles back, and with no cell service, she had no choice but to walk. The nearest town, according to the rusted sign she passed an hour ago, was still at least 5 miles away. She glanced at the moon, high and full, illuminating the twisted trees that lined the road. They stood like skeletal sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching toward her as if to snatch her away into the darkness beyond. Each step felt heavier, the weight of unease pressing against her chest. Then she heard it, a breath, cold and whispering, just behind her left ear. She whirled around, heart hammering against her ribs. Nothing, just the empty road, the whispering wind, and the deep, impenetrable shadows of the trees. Sarah swallowed hard, forcing herself to keep moving. It was just the wind, she told herself. Just exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. But the feeling of being watched slithered up her spine, an unseen presence lingering just beyond the edge of her perception. She quickened her pace, boots crunching on the worn asphalt. The cold breath came again, closer, more distinct, as though someone stood just behind her, their lips inches from her skin. A scream bubbled in her throat, but she swallowed it down, forcing herself not to panic. She needed to stay rational. The road was empty. There was no one here but her. And then she saw them. Footprints. They trailed beside her own, appearing out of nowhere. Fresh impressions in the thin layer of frost covering the road. But they weren't hers. They were larger, heavier, as if someone had been walking right next to her the entire time. Sarah's breath hitched. She stopped abruptly, and so did the footprints. A slow, paralyzing dread settled over her. She turned her head slightly, her eyes darting to the side. Out of the corner of her vision, she thought she saw something, a flicker of movement, a shadow darker than the night itself. It loomed just beyond the edge of the road, shifting between the trees. Then the whisper came, cold and rasping, forming words that made her blood turn to ice. Keep walking. Sarah bolted. Her feet pounded against the pavement as she sprinted forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She didn't dare look back. The trees blurred around her, the wind howling in her ears, the unseen presence chasing her, the whispering voice growing louder. Then lights, a dim glow in the distance, flickering through the trees. A gas station. She ran harder, lungs burning, legs aching, the chilling presence nipping at her heels. The moment she reached the station, she collapsed against the glass door, fumbling to yank it open. The warm air inside rushed over her, and she stumbled forward, gasping for breath. The attendant behind the counter, a middle-aged man with a weathered face, looked up, startled. "Miss, you okay?" Sarah spun around, expecting to see something, but the road outside was empty. The only footprints in the frost were her own. Someone was following me," she stammered, turning back to the attendant. "I heard them. I saw the footprints." He frowned, rubbing his chin. "You've been walking this road alone?" She nodded. He sighed, nodding toward a stool by the counter. "Sit. You look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah hesitated but did as he said, trying to steady her breathing. After a long pause, the man spoke. "You're not the first. Folks come through here sometimes talking about cold breath and footsteps. It's been happening for years." Sarah's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He leaned in, his expression grim. "Used to be a man who walked this road late at night. Trucker. Got into an accident years back, never made it home. Some say his spirit still walks, following people who get stuck out there. But he never means harm." Sarah shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "Then why? Why did he tell me to keep walking?" The attendant's face darkened. "Because, miss, he's not the only thing out there." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "Sometimes," the man continued, voice low, "he's trying to protect folks from something worse." A heavy silence settled between them. Sarah's mind raced, replaying every moment, every whisper, every breath that had chilled her skin. If the trucker's spirit had been warning her, what had he been trying to keep her away from? The wind outside howled, rattling the glass of the station's windows. Sarah suddenly felt like she had been lucky. Lucky to escape whatever lurked on that lonely road. But luck never lasts. A few nights later, as Sarah lay in bed, her body still recovering from the exhaustion of that night, something woke her. The sound of rattling glass. The window by her bedside trembled, a light mist forming on the inside of the pane. Cold breath. She sat up, heart pounding, reaching for her phone. 2:37 a.m. The room was eerily silent, save for the wind outside. Then, from the darkness, a whisper. "Not lucky. Not yet." Sarah screamed, scrambling to turn on the light, but the moment she did, everything was normal. The window was closed. The mist was gone. The room was empty. But deep down, she knew. She had left that road. But something had followed her home.